Hello and welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, coming to you through the magic of Zoom or StreamYard, as it were. We've got a great guest here, so let's get right into it. We're talking to Brad Host, Birmingham City Commissioner, present and future too. So welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you, Chuck. This is delightful of you to have me.
No, hey, we specialize on delightful shows and delightful guests. The host I can't vouch for, but all right. Now, well, congratulations on your reelection. Largest number of votes again. Well done.
Hey, thank you. In fact, and I am bragging now, thanks to you, Chuck, I've run 4 times for public election and I got the most votes every time. So there's hope for me.
Well, I've been actually the first time I ran for city commission, I got the largest number of votes too, and I was utterly intolerable about it till people finally told me to knock it off. But it was great. But I didn't knock it off. So, how did you get the largest vote total? I mean, you all were unopposed. How did you move the needle up and up?
It's pretty easy, and I think that you do the same thing. For example, I heard that you were at Leo's and offered people to come in and see you. As you know, I go to the farmer's market most every Sunday and sit on the bench outside, and people are kind enough to come over and talk to me. But what I did was I went door to door from probably late July through late October. And I probably knocked on a minimum of 1,000 doors, maybe more. And the people here are so nice. Nobody slams the door. They genuinely are entreated to see a potential public figure at their door. And I'll give you the classic. This is in Poppleton Park. I'm with a young father and his daughter and the dog outside, and this guy at the end turns to me and he says, "Brad, you're old school," which is I like to talk to people and see their circumstance as well as their concerns, and I think the public recognizes that I'm attempting to be their representative, and so I think that's why they like me, or better stated, they tolerate me. That's it.
So that sounds like a de facto endorsement of the current commission balance. I mean, if they were mad at any one of you, they could have turned you out, or someone could have run against you. Nobody did.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. And there was no mudslinging, which, if it had been a contested election, you can extrapolate how nasty it would have probably gotten.
Tell me about it.
You've been there and I've been there. So, but,
yeah.
We have a lovely public here that is very nice. Just when you're knocking on the door. I mean, the incidence of somebody being nasty to me is like 0.1% of all the people who live here. So this is a great community.
Well, now that you're back in, I have a question. Now you're back in for the next 4 years. Do you have any new initiatives? You have anything new you're gonna kind of bring to the table and work on after your experience? What's going on now?
Chuck, and I say this affectionately about the commission that I'm sitting with now. One of the things we did before the election was tell the city that we want them to speed up the improvements of the infrastructure. And I'm very proud that my fellow commissioners went along with a notion that I have said all along, which is we need to update the infrastructure and insofar as we can fix the unimproved roads. And so it has been made a major priority. Certainly from my viewpoint, the biggest item that we're not dealing with is the commercial parking downtown. It has been my stance since the moment I got elected the first time to point out that we have 5 decks and a couple of surface lots. But if you look at the Birmingham 1980 plan, which, by the way, I recommend anybody should look at it online, because it's only 90 pages and it's double spaced, old typewriter font, and very straightforward. And what I'm referring to is the appendixes in the back. They use the same square footage ratios for parking spots that we use today. And in the appendix, it shows 2-story. Birmingham is a 2-story community. And as such, we need 6,300 parking spots. Today, we have 4,900, including the decks and the surface lots. So we're 1,500 below what they anticipate for a 2-story downtown. And then the other appendix they do is 4-story, which is 12,300 plus spots. So we're not just 1,500 short, we're more like 7,500 short. So and the premise to what I'm trying to get the commission to realize is that you can't give away non-existent parking, and that's what I believe the city has been doing in the most recent new buildings that are going up. And of course, RH would be the poster child for what I just said. And if I may, and these are the actual numbers, they have the whole block between Brown and Danes, and the 3 1-story buildings that were there had a total of 30 parking spots. And Restoration Hardware is doing a 4-story building that has 25 parking spots in the basement. So they're 5 below what the 1-story buildings that they replace are on. And then the allocation for visitors is a deficit of 225 homes. And the commission didn't even talk about the employees' cars, which, by the way, the theory is RH is going to have 150 employees. So you do the math, add in maybe another 100 cars for the employees. The deficit is 335 cars, which is almost 1/2 of parking deck that we have. And I'm trying to point out that our capacity is below what we're releasing as the buildings, 4-story or 5-story buildings downtown. That would be the one thing, the most important thing for me, Chuck, to get on the table, is how do we handle non-existent parking? That's it.
Well, what I don't understand. Okay, you see this bruise on my jaw? That's it hitting the floor. The idea that we are expanding downtown south of town, down to 14, I think is down to Lincoln. Excuse me. I think it's fabulous. I love it. I love Restoration Hardware, but I never thought about it until you talked about the parking situation. Where are they going to park, and where can you put decks? I mean, I suppose we can talk about parking at the Peabody deck. Or Pierce Street, but that's kind of a bit of a hike. People aren't going to want to do that. How do you rectify that, or don't you?
Well, I think what you said about the South Old Woodward, that is fantastic, and as such, they have to look to Peabody or the Pierce deck, which, by the way, I remind you, those 2 decks were full in 2016, namely pre-pandemic.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
right, pre-COVID, and that is where they're going right now. Now, I'll grant you, if we continue to do these buildings, we need to consider adding parking. Certainly, if the triangle were to expand the way it has been zoned, that would happen. Well, the same is true for the regular downtown. And personally, I'm not real keen on adding decks. I would prefer to have the developer provide the parking on site. And as such, that would take care of a lot of the problem. But what you say is something that we need to be talking about, particularly if we're going to allow the downtown to go up in the air 4 or 5 stories.
Well, the triangle is expanding. I mean, come on, we've been. Yeah, I live not far from the triangle, and you go down Adams Road across from Adams Square. You look across; that's a big building. That's a huge building. So the triangle is definitely expanding. So that's not even if it does. It's got a big parking deck in the middle of it. So I guess maybe that's
maybe so. But the developments you're seeing have either the big apartment building that's going up has more than enough parking on site. In fact, they have an additional 65 parking spots beyond what they needed for the building, which is very encouraging. The same way the Four Seasons people, there is a deficit, and they do pay for the deficit, which I think is around 50 cars. They did pay $30,000 a spot, and so in the city coffers we have $1.5 million from Four Seasons that we could apply toward a future deck.
Well, that's all well and good if you got it. I mean, if we have parking, sure, we can rent it to them. Before we go any farther, I think we're going to be taking a break here. So we're going to hold that thought. And you talk about infrastructure. Parking is as necessary to a commercial office downtown as water and sewer is. So we better be looking at that. And we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break. We're talking to Brad Host, newly reelected city commissioner. I'm Chuck Moss. Don't go away. We'll be right here on Eye on Oakland. Welcome back to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we're talking with Brad Host, who is the newly reelected Birmingham City Commissioner. And we're talking about downtown, and we're talking about development, which we like, or at least I like. I love it. But you've got to have the infrastructure to support it. And one of the crucial infrastructure items is, of course, parking. And doesn't do any good if you've got buildings and no one can park. So let's take it away. We were just talking about, you mentioned the 1980 plan. I know a bit about the 2016 plan, which was done in 96. And I'll tell you right now, parking, we had all these empty decks. They didn't even plow the top 2 floors of them. But now it's all different. I want to jump on something, though. The parking situation that we are looking at and maxing out assumes a lot of people in office. Is the office occupancy situation in Birmingham fundamentally changing? Like post-COVID, people aren't coming back. They don't need as much office space. Have you heard anything about that?
Chuck, that is exactly what I've tried to bring forward to the commission, and it has been rejected so far. And the reason is we are over 90% occupied in the office area and 99% occupied on the retail area. I remember Crane's business probably 3-4 months ago, did a in-depth study of the metropolitan area and the commercial situation. And the only place that's exempt from what you're theorizing, which is the fallout of COVID in the square footage rentals of companies, the only place that's not affected is Birmingham. Whereas I would like to see that we make a plan with the notion that the commercial office occupancy is going to go way down. Everybody's saying the numbers are off the chart and we're exempt so far, so we don't need to deal with it. But I do think that that's going to happen in the near future.
Why do you think that's going to happen? I mean, one of my guests we have is a commercial real estate person, and that's another question I'm going to ask. I've been banging this drum since like early 21. So why do you think it's going to reverse and fall off in office?
Well, as a businessman, I'm pleased to say that the rental rates in Birmingham are about the highest you can get a hold of. And as such, I think employers will be ratcheting down their square footage expenses, even in Birmingham. It hasn't come to Birmingham because this is such a prestigious place to work. And I hope that does continue. But I agree with you that there's going to be some fallout. And so as such, we should be working with the commercial owners to reinvent maybe some of the office space into apartments, for instance, which that's part of the 2040 plan, is to have more people in Birmingham. And I personally think where they could easily go is in the downtown area when we reinvent some of this office space. But as it is 90% occupied, I can't get anybody to even talk about auxiliary plans.
We're 90% occupied. Well, we're bucking the trend nationwide too. That's actually good news.
It is. No, you're right. It is great news, but we ought to be working the downside, which is the rest of the world, because we're not going to be exempt forever. We need to be thinking about alternative usages for some of our office space as the employers ratchet it down. Hasn't happened yet.
Well, the commercial and office, it's once again 2016 plan. I know I'm going back now, but that did shape our current city. Is that we didn't even really consider office. It was like retail, commercial, but retail and residential. The office just kind of happened. And it's been good for the city, but it does require, as you say, the infrastructure. Let me jump real quick to retail. Retail looks like it's doing great. I mean, retail. I was downtown ringing bells with Rotary, doing the.
Doing that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, but downtown looked great. Just the retail's looking good. One thing that has downtowns have been fighting for years was the downtown versus the mall. And the malls right now they're dying. Somerset's still hanging in there, but I must say its Christmas stuff looks a little subdued compared to previous years. But, if the malls are dying, retail is doing well. Once again, Birmingham's going to gain from it, but where's everybody going to park?
Well, that's my question too. Namely, I think we need to have a timeout on development downtown while we assess how to proceed with a parking deficit that already is at least 1,500 cars, maybe more. Namely Birmingham at 2 stories. We're already Birmingham at 2 stories with the 1,500 deficit. So to add Mountain King's 5 stories and RH is 4 stories, etc., all these things need to be considered, so that we're not impinging on the people who live in the neighborhoods and their front yard parking.
Well, how about that 9-story building they're going to put at the southeast corner of Woodward and Maple? I mean, that's going to be a lot of people parking too.
Correct, but as you know, that the actual parking needs for that building are within that building. Namely, they have provided enough parking spots to do the 9-story, which is the way I would personally want to see everything done. I want to emphasize that the parking system is an asset of all the people who are the shareholders of Birmingham. And as such, we need to protect it because it belongs to all of us. And one of the first things that we did 4 years ago was ask the city manager to truly turn the parking into an enterprise. And we hired a gentleman named Aaron Ford, who is running the parking system, and our revenues are going up and our expenses are going down. And as such, his department has been doing an excellent job operationally. So,
well, it's easier to pay. I got to say that. I haven't gotten a parking ticket in at least 6 weeks. So I'm downtown all the time, So, the 2 hours free. It's all good. I mean, it's all good. It's just success brings with it other challenges. And you could be riding the spiral the other way, which is not so good. But enough about San Francisco, where we lived in the mid '80s. Now, we're talking about. And by the way, I did not know that they had their on-site parking for the 9-story at the southeast corner of Woodward. But while we're on Woodward, is the commission looking to try and narrow Woodward Avenue in Birmingham like they're trying to do in Ferndale? Is that a commission initiative?
Yes, it is. We call it the Woodward Diet, and as such, we're using Ferndale as a possible model. And of course, it nothing's official, but that's one of the missions of or goals of the commission is to make Woodward more pedestrian friendly. And of course, the noise of the aftermarket burners, we're trying to deal with that. And I applaud our police department. They continually meet with our reps, which, by the way, they're going to be at our meeting tonight, and this will be brought up about the Woodward Diet. But the police are attempting to do as much as they can. I want to encourage them to do more because when you live along that corridor, the noise level can get just horrible. But yes.
So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what you try. I do know. I always thought of Woodward Avenue as kind of a river, and the town. We built the town beside it, and if we want to try and dam it up, good luck. People are going to want to start going through the neighborhoods again, which that's no good. I can tell you that.
That's not good at all.
That's how I got into politics. Actually,
really?
Yeah, it was actually road widening. It was about believe it or not, they were going to widen Maple to 5 lanes. You may remember that.
Okay.
That's where I came in. I said that's stupid, and we put an end to it. But narrowing Woodward, that's interesting. I will be paying attention.
Slowing it down a little bit, as well as we have 2 problems with our Lansing governance.
I thought I was the only one that said that.
Okay, well, 2 problems, one of which is the aftermarket burners for the cars. I mean, that has turned into a huge industry with a large amount of lobbyists who keep it going. and that's part of the problem on Woodward. Um, the other problem is the speed, namely for safety and such. I think we should be entertaining anything to slow it down. Now, I will say we did the improvement on Brown Street by Jack's, namely between Big Woodward and Old Woodward, to slow things down and make it more safe for pedestrians. And this was part of a plan that we did with MDOT to ensure that MDOT, before the end of the year, is going to have a light on the east side of Woodward, right at 4th Street, or the continuation east of Brown. There's going to be a traffic light with that sidewalk now that's just north of Speedway, and that should be an east-west union that we is long overdue.
Well, it's interesting because maybe they shouldn't time the lights, so you have to go between 53 and 57 miles per hour to make them all, which is of course illegal. I'm not saying that I do that, but it can be done. Slowing Woodward down. I mean, like I said, good luck. I mean, it is historic. I understand how it's a barrier, and I understand how they've had a lot of different schemes for how you can connect the two halves of the city. And good luck. That's going to be interesting. One thing about let's go to neighborhoods real quick before we run out of time. The neighborhoods seem to be doing great. The only issue is there's good news and bad news. The good news is the neighborhoods are desirable. The not so good news is that there's redevelopment. The smaller, older houses and the ones with the large lots are being knocked down for bigger houses, which is, I guess, cities are dynamic, but I don't know what you do about that. I don't know if you can do anything about that.
I firmly believe there is plenty that we can do, and part of the problem is that all our ordinances, our building ordinances, are very commercial developer friendly, and what they ought to be is neighborhood and community friendly. There should be bigger setbacks, more height restrictions, and that would help keep a neighborhood going. The same way I would like to see us incentivize renovation. If you have a smaller home, why not put an addition on it? And the whole notion of everything I just said is to attempt to stay affordable. That is a problem in Birmingham.
That's definitely a problem. Is affordable. As the community becomes more desirable, the value of the lots go up. As the value of the lots go up, it becomes more difficult to get financing for a small, teeny tiny house on a lot that is, is that. So the bank regulations also, or these guidelines, tend to favor that too. I'm watching the stuff go down. It's too bad. I don't know how you do that. You don't want to get into the reverse spiral. You end up like in Detroit with nothing but vacant lots.
Oh, true. I think that there's a general movement by the neighborhoods saying, this is a little ridiculous, how big these places are compared to what I would call the ambiance of the neighborhood, the flow of the buildings. People are becoming more and more concerned about these McMansions and what they're not helping the community or the sense of neighborhood. They're more of a thorn in most of our neighborhoods, and as such, I think we should deal with it. Now, what we're talking about, Chuck, is anti-growth, and I'm not anti-growth. I just think that the growth shouldn't be as large of buildings. It ought to keep the flow of a neighborhood.
Yeah, well, it's Yeah, I don't envy you grappling with that problem. It's it's easier to kind of you can't manage it. There's lots of things. I mean, a Mick mansion is one thing, but is your neighborhood going to be home of the Whopper? Because that does change everything. But I'm someone who has 3 cars with a 2-car garage anyway. So although I don't know, I got some bad news about the convertible. Oh well. Now, just going forward, we're gonna have to leave it here. It's been really good talking with you. And the city commission, for all, sometimes you have a lot of sparks flying, but when it came down to the election, the people, nobody ran against you. You got reelected. I consider that a ratification.
Thank you, Chuck. It's a pleasure always to be with you, and the fact that you're a former Mr. Birmingham, you continue to be Mr. Birmingham. It's delightful that I get in your get to be on your show. Thanks.
Well, thank you. It's always good to have you, and we'll definitely have you back, and keep an eye on what's going on. All right, we're going to leave it there. I'm Chuck Moss, and thank you for joining us here on Eye on Oakland.